Welcome to Talk Universe. Today we've got an interesting subject, Sandbox. Now, the word goes back a long time to actually testing in many years previous to this, but it's something that's gained a lot of popularity in computers and graphics and robotics. So let's look at the earliest works in sandboxes. And a good example is testing robots, testing rovers. For instance, you might imagine you have a machine that mows your yard or vacuums the floor or does some exploring, and you want to test it out in an environment that isn't the real world where it might be damaged or cause damage, but one where you can control it. So let's have a look at a sandbox. Now this is the one that JPL and NASA use to test various Mars rovers, and you see it literally is a box full of sand. Not much to it. Here you can see the wheels are digging in, and so they learned a lot about the consistency of sand that the rover would work on. They also have gone to the stage where they have created very large sandbox areas. Now you can test not only how well the wheels have traction, but whether they can see and interact with obstacles. So the sensory hardware of a robot can be tested, its responses to real-world conditions can be controlled, and so on. But let's say you haven't actually built the robot yet. Let's say you're simulating something. You want to create a digital sandbox. Well, it's easy enough to write some code, perhaps in Python or whatever language you like, that creates the equivalent of a sandbox. Why would you do that? Well, you want to build a robot, but you don't have the budget for it yet. But you still can develop the design and the software and the sensors. And you want to make sure that it's going to be safe. I can think of a lot of things, let's say ChefBot 900 that you want to test out. You really want to put it in a sandbox world first and know that it's not going to, cut the wrong things or react in a way that can damage your toaster. This is something we have to keep a sharp eye on. So you can understand that the use of a sandbox can be something that's very beneficial and will save you a lot of damaged instrumentation. Actually, sandboxes have been around for many, many years, and in digital or real world form. So you create a boundary, but you can do some tricks here. In an actual sandbox, you have so many meters this way and so many meters that way, and those are the boundaries. A digital sandbox has an advantage. You can literally make it wrap around. So if you go too far left, you wrap around and come back to the right again. Some video games used to do this. You'd go off the screen, you'd show up on the other side. You go off the top, you'd show up at the bottom again. It gives the effect of having an unlimited test space. So what do you simulate in a sandbox? You can simulate such things as obstacle avoidance, collisions, how it reacts with certain items. If you were making a vacuum cleaner and it's going to be on a living room floor, you're going to look at rug types versus a bare floor. You're going to see how your hardware traction appears to work or not eat the shag carpeting. You want to make sure it doesn't swallow an electrical cord, cut through it and blow out a breaker or something. So building a sandbox and then building a virtual model of your robotic or test hardware is a very simple, cheap, and easy thing to do. And the advantages are you can add any level of complexity that you want. People use sandboxes all the time. Think about the people who go online gaming. They go into virtual environments that have obstacles, challenges, weather, and so on. You can simulate day and night cycles, diurnal cycles. You can simulate weather. You can simulate temperatures, the presence or absence of water, vegetation, other items that might interfere with the operation of your machine, such as animal life, hailstorms. So it depends on how complex you want to be. A sandbox can be an extremely useful thing to create, and it doesn't take a whole lot of lines of code to do for very simple, straightforward applications of this sort. So now, you can simulate a world and an environment within that world and do it with just not a whole lot of code. Gamers do it all the time. You can also create an environment in there that cannot be escaped from. So any machine you put in there is not going to come out and break things in the real world. You don't even have to actually have the original hardware. You can simulate that as well. It's all a simulation. And the funny thing is, this could be one of our best defenses against artificial intelligence systems. So you create an AI, you don't know what it's capable of. You put it in a sandbox world with things to interact with. You turn it on, you stand back. Wow, you can see exactly what it would do, exactly how it would interact. Here's another advantage to a sandbox. Reality runs at a 1-to-1 ratio. 1 minute is 1 minute, 1 second is 1 second. Sandbox simulations have the capability to run 1,000,000 times slower, 1,000,000 times faster. If you want to create a world, you can stuff all the items in there, set up the rules, turn it on, crank up the time, and let it age 1,000,000 years in a few minutes. Real advantages. The funny thing about sandboxes is many physicists seem to think that our world is a simulation. After all, many video games produce such a realistic and convincing experience that people will play for hours, weeks, years. So it's a potential hazard to us, not to the inhabitants. Now, what would an AI do in a sandbox? Well, you create a place where it can interact with its environment and learn how to, for instance, walk, move around, grasp items, pick things up and move them. It learns about the reality it is in by interacting with this synthetic world, just as we do with our world. And the advantage is, if the AI is not aware that it's in a sandbox world, it won't have any reason to think that it should try to escape. It gives you a lot of flexibility in testing, and it makes sure that you don't even have to build the hardware. You can simply take a concept, animate it as if it's in a game, and test it out safely. Well, anyway, sandboxes are a fascinating concept, and I thought that that would be something that might bring a little bit of interest into your life. Think about what you could do with a sandbox, and think about the hardware you could test in it. It could be farming systems that move for miles in every direction, plowing the fields. It can check if they run into obstacles. It could be cooking robots, such as we were talking about earlier. It can actually be simulations of environments in the ocean. There was one where simulations of sharks and fish were used to see how the populations would grow and fall as the predators and the prey became eaten, reproduced, chased, defended. So you can actually simulate fairly accurately what happens in the world. Today, hurricanes are simulated in sandboxes to see what small changes we can make to perhaps steer them away from land and prevent damage. So that's the concept for today, sandbox. Well, thank you for watching Talk Universe. I hope you learned something fascinating and it gave you something to think about. Have a wonderful life, enjoy, and thanks for watching.